So somebody says, they say, it's funny because I don't know if blah, 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 blah. You've done it, I've done it. Lots of people do that. Well, they'll start a sentence by saying, it's funny that blah. And it doesn't mean to be humorous. It's just a common colloquialism we use in English to start a point.
Yeah.
To start a sentence. Some dumbass, I didn't say this, but somebody else said, it's funny because I don't even know blah, blah, blah. Some dumbass replied to the original person and said, it's not funny. Not everything is a joke, you idiot. He's 100% serious. And it's like, he didn't say it's funny, ha ha. So I literally typed to him, colloquialism, definition, a word or phrase that is not formal or literary, typically one used in ordinary or familiar conversation. I just Googled the dictionary definition and sent it to him. He didn't mean funny. His reply to me, I don't really care and don't want to. It's like, okay, good. I'm so glad you decided to interact. Thank you for coming to this TED Talk.
Boy, he just pulled the cord immediately.
I'm surprised I wasn't immediately blocked.
Yeah, that's like the next, after you send the definition to him, that's the next message you get. You are blocked by this user.
That happened in the GTA thing, in fact. Well, they didn't block me, but it was the same situation where I'm just going to say, some bitch was like, oh, I can't believe people don't want to play as a woman in GTA. They're so sexist. And I was like, I sent her the definition of the word straw man, which I'd have to look up again. But it's like, oh, you've made a ridiculous argument, and I know you're full of shit. I'm just like, bah, have that. This is my new thing now. It's like, I know fake arguments when I see them because I make real and fake arguments all the damn time. I pretend shit. So I know when someone else is pretending. But hey. This is the internet's worst gaming podcast. I'm your host, Loki S. Jarson. With me here again today is my good friend Joe F. Stizzy. I think that was the middle initial we just cited.
Yes, but the F has a different meaning every time we ask about it. It's like that. It's like that story an old war veteran will give about that scar he got. It's different every time he tells it.
Oh yeah, when he says to Rachel, "Do you want to know how I got these scars?" And then he's like, "Oh, his dad." Yeah. And but then the next time he tells Batman, "Yeah, I know." How have you been?
I've been good. I'd say this every time I think, but I'm amazed on how long it takes. How long the time passes between these shows, and
Well, life happens, unfortunately.
yeah, no, I don't mean it to be that way because I do enjoy this. I do enjoy talking games with you. It's just we do that all the time, and but
yeah, we don't record it, unfortunately. Yeah.
yeah, see, that's our problem. We should just record on Skype more often, like you're suggesting.
Or figure out how Discord works. Somebody tell me, please, because I don't get it. I'm too old.
I mean, I used it a little bit I used it a lot when I was playing Final Fantasy 14 with my brother, but I only got as far as how to add friends and how to invite them to chats, and that was
How
it.
to influence people.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, you think I'd be here?
I think we should just get right to the most recent big story. There have been several showcases, and if you want to talk about games from showcases, directs or PlayStation Directs, what they called. I don't remember. States of Plays, you can, but the most recent big story that we put off talking about was the GTA 6 leaks.
Yes, yeah, just not even a week since this recording.
It'll be another week before I release this, but it's still in the recency.
Oh yeah, I mean this is still relatively big news, and this is without a doubt the biggest leak, or one of the biggest leaks. The Half-Life 2 one might still hold the crown. I wasn't really big into the internet scene back then. That sounds real old
It was like
manish, but
it was like 2006 though, right? 2005.
I think it was earlier than that. I thought it was like 02, 03 when that happened. And for what I remember, or at least what I've read about it over the years, is that one still I think kind of holds a special place in leakers' hearts because that was an old-fashioned hacking job. Like it was some kid in Germany or Switzerland or
Hmm.
whatever with in his basement with his dad's computer, and he you know like a scene out of the movies Hackers. He actually got into Valve systems from the outside and whatnot. But
Yeah, this new one was a similar idea in that he was just like piggybacking off one of the employees that left their shit open or something.
yes, I believe this hack job with involving Rockstar GTA 6, there was a lot more social engineering involved.
Hmm.
I don't know the full details, but he somehow was able to get this get this employee's information or fish it out of him uh, to get into his Slack account.
Yeah,
And
that's what it was.
this was the first time I ever heard about Slack because I've never been in a workplace that has used it. But apparently, speaking of talking about Discord, from what I've heard, in layman's terms, is basically Discord for businesses.
Hmm.
It's a place where employees can chat with each other, send IMs, uh, upload images, video files, or whatever, data
It's
files, all that kind of good stuff.
it's basically WhatsApp, but less stupid.
Yeah, a little more buttoned up, if it were,
Hmm.
a little more professionally done. So, but yeah, he somehow got this guy's info for his account, and he's able to just basically just get to the account and download all these images and video files, and then uploaded them to the GTA forums. Um,
And then once they're on the internet, they're everywhere on the internet.
yeah, everybody saved it, and everybody's now an NFT owner, and they own those images and can never be taken away from them. But yeah, this guy just kind of he dropped the gaming leak bomb of the decade, and
So okay,
then
now I'll dispute this point because uh, I don't know that this is bigger necessarily. It might be bigger from like a managerial or business or consequence standpoint, but from like a gaming meta, where trending topics occur and where discussion on forums and Reddits is. I think Last of Us 2 leak was bigger in terms of impact.
you're probably right. I think it was big in the fact that it was Rockstar, and
Yes,
they're
you would never think this could happen to them. This shit happens to Sony all the time.
yeah they Rockstar, they are a huge business, put it lightly, and they play things very close to the chest. And as far as I know, I've never heard of their systems having any incursions whatsoever before this. Um, and it sounds like from everything you hear, they run things very very tightly. They run a tight ship over there, so
Yes.
it's big in that fact, but. Um, it wasn't exactly it wasn't it's not like it was a surprise that they were working on the next Grand Theft Auto game.
Hmm.
Um,
I don't know how deep you're gonna go. I don't want to necessarily talk about specifics, JIC, just in case whatever. But we can talk overall a broad spectrum. But my point of the comparison to Last of Us 2 leaks is like there are lots of people who saw these GTA 6 leaks, myself included, who was like, you know what, this looks better than I imagined, pretty good, a few years off. I'm interested to play it. I can't say more or less, but it's good to see progress. Whereas Last of Us 2 leaks, a lot of the discourse was, oh, thank God I don't have to play this now.
yeah, it seems like from what I remember, the leaks of the Last of Us 2 were a little further along in the development cycle
Yes, it
than
was. It was basically almost done, and then PlayStation was forced to give out a release date shortly thereafter.
yeah, you're right. And the Last of Us 2 cases, the things that got leaked were the main story points, which is the
It's a
biggest.
story game,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's the biggest draw of a game like that. So
Do either of us really care what the story of Grand Theft Auto 6 is?
no, no, and I mean the things that were shown were just characters walking around, pointing a gun, just kind of doing, just demonstrating how the world looks and how it
A lot of
plays.
physics testing.
Yeah, yeah, and like you, I was pretty impressed at how it looked. I think uh, it looked as good or maybe even slightly better than GTA 5 did on the current consoles, and I'm interested to see how much better it'll look as the development goes on, and I'm sure it'll still be a couple of years before it even comes out. Uh,
The real, I guess, criminal element of this is that, no specifics, but on the screen there was a lot of lines of code. And if maybe you were more advanced at programming than I am, you would understand easier what was on there. But one of the things about programming code is that you can copyright it. You can make it proprietary to your company. So you're showing someone else's code that's super illegal, more than, let's say, a cutscene from Tulu 2.
yeah, yeah, which basically just reinforces the fact that this he was just downloading these files from a chat that the employees were sharing amongst each other, and just kind of comparing, like putting it on the Slack room or whatever they call it, and just sharing their work and reprising it amongst themselves. So yeah, it wasn't like he downloaded the teaser trailer early and then just threw it out there. No, yeah, it was actual, yeah, a little, yeah. There's, showed some of the meat and bones of the
Yeah,
actual
I
work
was
behind it.
I think it was late last year, or earlier this year. Street Fighter 6 had a leak too, and it showed the whole roster of the launch roster for the game next year. And Capcom would come out and say, "Oh man, we're really sorry you had to see that, but we're happy that you're excited to play the game." So they had, gradually had to release their roster quicker than they anticipated.
Yeah, no, it's like what else can they do at that point?
Yeah.
It's just it's out there.
Well, I would say Rockstar is the most aggressive at this point because of the patterns. Like this happens to fucking Ubisoft all the time. The most recent one, Mirage, got leaked like a week before they officially announced it. But it's so frequent with Ubisoft that they never do anything about it. They don't give a fuck. It's like, another employee leaked our data again. Oh well, what are you gonna do? Capcom was kind of like hat in hand, all shucks about it.
Hmm.
I know Naughty Dog went after people. Rockstar may have had the longest possible reach in that they actually allegedly found the person who hacked the employee in the first place.
Yeah, that just came out yesterday. Apparently, this hacker, he's a 17-year-old kid in the UK, and it was actually, yeah, it was UK police. I think it was in Oxfordshire where they made the arrest, and apparently they had a investigation going in, cooperating with the FBI, who were also tracking down this hacker group that this kid was a part of. But
Because they were asking like Uber services too, right?
yes, yeah, yeah, I don't know if he specifically or if he's the group he's a part of was also tied to, yeah, hacking to Uber technologies, and uh, I'm not really sure the details all that and what they got, but I imagine it's the same you know sort of they same tactics they used. It was just social engineering and getting someone's personal info and hacking that way. But because in a lot of apparently in a lot of circles, from what I read online, this kid is like, even in the quote unquote hacking circles, he's not well regarded, and that he doesn't really he's not really knowledgeable in the technical side of that kind of stuff. But a lot of the
So,
a lot of
go
hacking
ahead.
is what they like I said, they call social engineering. It's finding a way to get these guys, get these employees info. And I think the way he did it is, I believe he basically just bombarded this guy's computer with those two-step verifications,
Mm.
and then when it became such a nuisance, he like somehow this guy, he was able to send this guy his number, and he impersonated a an employee of like whatever their software they use, and that's how he got that information. He was able to just, yeah, like I said, fish it out of this guy. And I think they use the same tactic for the Uber hack, but
This doesn't really require any programming knowledge. I mean, with a little research, your average citizen could do this. Which really just exposes how flawed a lot of security systems are, because they require people to be in charge of them.
yeah, no, it's you're definitely right. It's chain is only as the link is only as strong as your okay, I got that backwards, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, the
Chain,
mixed metaphor.
yeah,
Do you think Rockstar fires this employee? Because I would.
I'd be surprised if they haven't already. Um, yeah, obviously don't have any idea who it was. A name never got released or anything, but yeah, if they're not gone, then I'd be amazed.
They haven't gotten rid of whoever's doing it at Ubisoft for over a decade, because it just keeps happening. They don't seem to give a shit.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that seems kind of weird to Ubisoft. You would think they would have the same sort of resources and capabilities that Rockstar would if they really wanted
See,
to pursue this.
this is where conspiracy theorists come in, right? Because it's like, okay, this was an outside interference, so they went after him hard. Ubisoft's consistent problem seems to be, I have no idea, internal. Like an actual employee is pre-leaking this stuff they were going to show anyways. That's basically done. Like Ubisoft leaks don't ever have source code. They have product, and it's like here's the cutscene, here's the name of the game, here's where it takes place, here's who's starring in it, etc. like that.
Yeah, I've heard those theories myself that these companies allow this, or it's kind of it's a controlled leak, like you said.
I heard that with Capcom with the Street Fighter thing. Yeah,
Yeah, and
it's
they
like, oh,
do.
they wanted this to happen,
Yeah, they just do it
and
to generate buzz around their game.
I think the Rockstar thing proves that no, they really don't want this to happen.
Hmm.
Another outcome from it, I don't know if you're following it on Twitter, but another outcome from it is I don't know who, but I've explained this before on this show. Some dumbass will say dumb thing, and then a million people jump on that dumbass. Some dumbass was dismissing GTA 6 because the graphics weren't very good, and he said that graphics are one of the first things done in the game. Now, we both know that's a stupid statement, and we don't need to move on from we can move on from it.
Hmm.
1 million game developers decided to jump on that dude and show here's an early build from our game that looks like this when we first started. Oh, it's just polygons and shapes and blocking. It's like, yes, we fucking know. We don't need to dunk on this dude. But a lot of other developers saw it as like, oh, it's a tide of support for Rockstar. It's like, are you? It's a weird cognitive dissonance because it's kind of been Rockstar versus other companies for years now. But now that their systems have become vulnerable, you want to show that you're on the same side as them? Because they've got a huge market share you don't have. I'm very suspicious.
Yeah, it's like the classmate sticking up for the bully all of a sudden. It's like, yeah,
Yeah, it's like 3 weeks ago, before any of this nonsense, right? Everyone hates Rockstar because of predatory business practices and stuff with Strauss, and they're increasing the price of the games at 2K, and fucking shark cards, and hashtag save Red Dead Online. After this leak, nothing. Everybody's on their side. But like I said earlier, I can't say that I'm more or less excited for GTA 6. I was gonna play it anyway. It's just nice to see, yeah, they are working on it. Yeah, they're making progress. Yeah, they've got a lot more done. I can't say that I would have thought of because it's been fucking 9 years. But this isn't coming out until 24.
I'd say at the earliest, yeah. Um, I mean, yeah, like you, I was planning on playing it anyways. It's nice to see that it's set in Vice City, at least for some part of it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's always good. That was probably my favorite city to play in.
While we're here, I want to debunk this whole a notion of there's another false narrative going around. It's like, oh, you can switch between generic white man protagonist and this Latino woman, and lies and slander going around that, oh, people don't want to play as a woman. And they're just straw manning all day long. And that's been going on for quite a few years. It's ramped up recently. I would just like to put both of that to bed between us two here. We have no problem and do not care about the gender of the protagonist.
No, I certainly don't. In fact, I made a female protagonist from a GTA Online
Yeah,
character. So yeah, I mean, it as long as she's you know, interesting and dare I say good
I
looking,
would go with likable.
um, likable would be also good too. But at least with a GTA game, if she's an insufferable character, it still wouldn't be a bad thing because it's almost like you would expect it in a game like GTA,
You
which
play murderer
everything's a
psychopaths every
parody.
game.
Yes, yeah, it's these are not good. These are not good people we're playing
No.
as. They might be
Mm-hmm.
charming in some way. You may grow attached to them. That's understandable. Heck, I mean, I've liked Darth Vader since I was 6 years old, and he's murdered millions. So it's possible to like bad people,
That's the other.
or at least bad fictional people.
Yes, absolutely. That's the other thing about the leak situation. It's all story mode as far as we can tell. So you know, Grand Theft Auto the last 10 years has not made its money back from people playing the story mode. They've made it from the online, and we've seen no things. It's the basic systems, right? So like, whatever the protagonist can do in the game, you're going to be able to do in the online. So it's a sort of preview, I guess, but that's not where everyone's going to be spending their time in GTA 6.
No, and you can be certain that there's going to be an online for GTA 6 just because how much money the online for 5 made, and heck, 5 will probably still be making lots of money even when 6 comes out. Uh, but yeah, I mean, for me at least, and a lot of people play these games for their single player modes. I mean, you can see that just on how many copies Red Dead Redemption 2 sold,
Mm-hmm.
and that game had it online, but they didn't. I mean, they didn't invest nearly as much time or resources in that
No,
than they do in GTA O.
and I don't think they're
So, but
ever going to.
no, they've all but said that it's dead. They're just gonna stop putting any effort into it, which is sad because that's such a such a great game to play and such a fun world to
Mm-hmm.
play in. And I wanted to see more out of it, but I mean, from a business standpoint, I can see their logic. GTAO makes more money as a much higher player base.
My brother Thomas, who's on the show frequently with me now, still plays GTA. He's I can't remember how many years he's been playing and recording videos for his YouTube channel. He's never played the story mode, not even once. Never booted it up. Doesn't care.
That's remarkable, seeing, especially since these games started off as single player games. There was no online.
Yeah, I remember.
I
I
want to
remember
follow.
you, me, and Rob did play some of GTA 4 online, right?
I believe we did. Yeah,
I can't
yeah,
remember anything we did. I know we did it.
yeah. I can't either. It wasn't. I mean, it was a lot more bare bones than Five's online mode
Mm-hmm.
was, obviously. But yeah, I do remember that. I think it was probably. I think we just did like general deathmatch stuff. I don't know. I see. I don't even remember if there was like a free roam in that in GTA 4 online. I don't. I think we. I think it might have just been in lobbies and then certain game types, game modes, and I'm not sure if there was an online free roam.
My wish list for online of GTA 6 would be to limit player interaction because one of the reasons I certainly stopped playing GTA Online is you walk out of your apartment and you explode. You're driving your car and then you explode. You're trying to buy a hat and you explode. He's like, oh, you can go into safety mode. It's like, yes, then you also can't do any interactions. It's like, well, then you need a server by yourself. Then suddenly you're not playing online anymore. So it's become griefing simulator the game, and I'm too old to put up with that shit. So like less of that in 6, but keeping the core idea. I don't know what they're gonna do or how they would fix what I see as a problem. They obviously don't see as a problem.
Well, I'll tell you what fix a lot of that is being able to make your own private room
Mm.
and just only be able to allow your friends or people that you invite to come in. And as far as I know, that you still can't do that to this day. Now there are kind of,
They're workarounds.
excuse me, there's yeah workarounds to doing that. Like if you join a room and then unplug your Ethernet cable and then plug it back
You'd
in
have to
and
ask
then
my
go
brother
back
because he
in or
does this all the
something.
time. But yeah, he knows how to do it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, no, but it's unnecessary hassle when it should just be a click of the button.
mm.
And there you go. I mean, there you go. That's a ton of headaches already fixed right there.
uh, but hey, we're both looking forward to it. Best of luck to everyone at Rockstar, and best of luck to that kid who probably won't honestly get that much jail time. But it is the UK, and they are a totalitarian regime, so I don't know.
Yeah, he's a minor, but I don't know. Hey, they may wait to try him before till he turns 18. I don't
Mm.
know if if that would be
I,
legal or
I think
not.
this is one of those situations where they think, oh, if we give max punishment, it will deter. I don't think that's ever worked in the history of crime. Like, punishment has never deterred crime. I don't think it's always been an effect of.
No, yeah, there are hackers out there that are older than
Mm-hmm.
17 and much savvier and wiser than this kid is, and they know how to stay undetected.
So,
So, yeah,
so yes,
it's
GTA 7 will probably be leaked too in about 15 years.
yeah. Well, heck, I mean, that kid who hacked Half-Life 2, he woke up one day with a bunch of German secret police pointing guns at his face, and that didn't stop people from hacking. So,
Nintendo ninjas rappel down from the ceiling. Now, Nintendo hacks
that would sound
we
great.
haven't talked about because we never hear about them because they're silently taken care of.
Yeah, like you said, they woke up one day and they got a katana to their throat, and that's it. And they said, Omawa Shinderu. And then the person
God
was
damn, I was
dead.
about to say that, you fucker. I was trying to get out of my lap. Teleports behind you.
Uh,
Do you have anything more on this so we can stress off this part?
no, but like you said, it's good that it's coming out, and I'm gonna play it. And it just judging by the screenshots and the short clips we saw, um, it looks pretty good for the stage that it's at, and it's only gonna look better. So that's a good thing. And yeah, I hope it's. And they said that's not gonna cause any delays, but who knows if that's true? And plus, they never even set a definitive
It's
release
not going to
date
cause a
anyway.
delay of a
So
thing we haven't said when we're done.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
So it may have, and we wouldn't know anyways.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they just use this to their advantage. They're like, wow, man, we're probably going to delay this game anyway, so okay, yeah, we got a ready-made excuse now. Great.
And again,
But
I
yeah,
say temporarily everyone's on Rockstar's side for a couple of weeks, and then they'll do something else.
yeah, then they'll go back to being Rockstar, and everybody will hate them again.
And they'll go woke. I'm gonna cut all this, so just say whatever you need to in order to get to the next thing. How about you handle transition for once?
So, how about them Souls games, huh?
Yeah, they suck.
Yeah, you hear about these? Yeah, you hear about this?
You know about this? Ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah, these really obscure genre of games, these Souls games.
Do you remember? This is gonna take us back because we've been doing this piece of shit podcast off and on for a long time now, and we're somehow only on episode 59. But a very long time ago, I had a podcast episode titled "Dark Souls Sucks" because I rented it from GameFly, played a few hours of it worth, and just got so frustrated. And I was like, I can't believe anybody could possibly like this game. And I think this was around the time Bloodborne was about to come out, and there was an intro of a different episode where Rob was talking about his interest in Bloodborne, even though he'd never played any of the other kinds of games. And I said, I'm not interested in it because it's from the same people who made it. It's the same kind of game. So let's fast forward all these years later. I've played most of them, and I still really only like just the one. I've come around on Dark Souls 1. It was the PS3 version. And 2 never was able to grab me, even though I beat it twice. 3 never grabbed me, and I got really far in Bloodborne, but I never had any fun. And I haven't touched Sekiro, but I've played a lot of the clones. And Elden Ring came out this year, and it's probably going to win Game of the Year from every single publication, except maybe the Game Awards, the Jeff Awards. That's probably going to go to Ragnarok. Uh, what are your? I don't know. How did you get started? Because I remember you were also on the fence of, nah, I don't like this kind of shit.
Yeah, like you, I played the first one way back when it first came out. I want to say, 2011, 2012, around then. And unlike you, I wasn't smart enough just to rent it. I actually bought it.
Oh,
Uh, yes, yeah, and bought it digitally, even even worse. Um, and I played a couple hours of it. I think I got through the first couple boss. I think I got past the Taurus demon, who's the second boss. Got out of the asylum, all that. But like you, yeah, I was just kind of. It felt like a slog, and everything just felt needlessly difficult, and I just I wasn't really having fun with it, and I just kind of dropped it. Never had any interest. Plus, my opinion on that franchise really turned just based solely on on the fandom surrounding it. Because around that time, came around the time came out. The first one came out around when Skyrim came out, and everybody was comparing the two, and all the Dark Souls fans were, there was a stupid meme of like how I feel after beating a boss in Dark Souls, and it's this grizzled veteran with a cigarette in his mouth, and then it's, oh, how I felt after being a boss in Skyrim. It's this little baby with the medieval helmet or something stupid like
yeah.
that.
We like to compare games here a lot, and tech. If we're being honest, they're in the same genre of RPG, but they change in the subgenre. It's like, yes, they're both RPGs, but the way you interact with those random dice rolls is very different. So I don't think it's a totally fair comparison, just on the kinds of games they are.
No, and I played Dark Souls 1, completed it for the first time last year, and I
The
really liked it.
remastered on the PS4 version, yes.
Yeah, I really liked it and really enjoyed it. I think Skyrim is an infinitely better game than the first Dark Souls, still to this day. I mean,
I agree.
Skyrim's in my top 10 of games, whereas Dark Souls, it's probably in my top 100, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's anywhere near as good a game as Skyrim. But it's a good game nonetheless, and the challenge is nice. And once you get into it, once you get used to the flow of the game, and
Yeah, all of these games really do follow a rhythm kind of. It's like almost a dance with every fight.
Mhm. Yeah, and once you get used to that and get used to a certain boss's attack patterns or mechanics or what have you, then you can eventually, try enough, you can eventually overcome it, and there is a certain satisfaction to it. Um, but yeah, but it's everything. Honestly, with these games, it's everything in between that gives me the biggest headaches. It's, you know, it's all the ambushes and all the status effects and all the
The incredibly
environmental,
long distances between checkpoints.
yeah, and all the environmental hazards and whatnot. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, there'd be times where I was like, I would be looking forward to the fog wall because that I knew, oh my goodness, yeah, at least I know there's a bonfire or whatever somewhere nearby. Um,
It's like, I have made progress.
yeah, exactly. And that was definitely the most satisfying thing, especially if you get through a tough area, then you get to a boss and it's kind of a joke, and it's like, okay, that really was, this get, that the game has built its reputation on the difficult boss fights, and for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
There are some are some tough ones, and
That's what's usually talked about, like to get away specifically from the first game. But in this whole From Software series, and even the Souls-like games, whenever someone describes them, they don't describe any individual encounter that isn't a boss. They're always talking about this boss did this, and I got to this boss at this level, and I beat this boss on my own, but I needed help for this boss. You're never talking about any of the NPCs. You're never talking about. Recently, people are talking about Elden Ring environments. I'll give them that. But nobody talked about Dark Souls 2 environments, except for the negative, or 3. The aesthetics of Bloodborne, a lot of people like, but you're not talking about the time you went through Chernacamwell Lane. You're talking about the bosses you fight after that.
yeah, there's some yeah you're not gushing over someone's NPC's character arc and
Mm.
whatnot because in these games it's hard to even there are quests, but it's hard to know how to progress them correctly most of the time. What to do because it's most of the time you have to follow a guide to do everything correctly.
Is
You
would
know,
you? My sense for this is like, as towards like themes or whatever. Would you ever think there's a middle ground in these From Software games? Because it is always for me either high or low. There's no neutral point. There's no point where you're enjoying the moment to moment gameplay because you're stressed moment to moment. You're not having fun in the moment of playing, but you're satisfied certainly after beating a boss or finally finding a checkpoint bonfire or whatever after so many hours of searching for one. But in the moment to moment, are you really enjoying yourself?
uh, honestly, it mostly depends on your loadout, I would say, and your build. Like getting like if you had a magic build, if you got a really really good spell and you were just blowing through everything, and even on a new unexplored area, uh, or if you got a good weapon that you really really enjoy and you really like the move set, or a good really sleek piece of armor, because as we all know, Dark Souls is a fashion game first and foremost.
Of course.
Um, but at the but that those moments, those are only going to occur as you make a good deal of progress into the game. When you first start the game, then yeah, it's stress central. I mean,
Hmm.
I was that way, even being the first two games and starting the third game. I wanted to get into a pyromancer class, and it was my first time doing a mage build, so I was extra squishy at the beginning of the game, and I died a ton at the beginning of the game, and it was not fun whatsoever. I seriously debated just not even playing three at that point in the beginning. I was kind of like, I mean, what do I got to prove at this point? But I was able to finally plow on and get my character up and actually get some spells and get a decent arsenal going. And by a certain point in the game, I was having a pretty easy time and not dying nearly as much.
Because your spells, magic in all these games is crazy OP. It is like it's not cut from the same cloth. It's not the same design philosophy. But I always refer back to RPGs with old early Dungeons and Dragons. First, especially second edition in the 80s. The idea that a magician is going to be eventually one day super powerful at casting magic, but until you get to that point, a poke will kill you. So you kind of need to be protected by the party at large, by gentleman's agreement, because there's no rules for this. That okay, this is the squishy sorcerer. It's like you're gonna nuke everyone at level 20, but at level 5, you're a little bitch. You can't get anything done. And that design philosophy somehow carried over into these Japanese role playing games all these years later. It's like if you cast magic, you have no health, but eventually you'll be able to one shot everything.
Yeah, yeah, you're exactly right. It was these roles were created with a certain party archetype in
Mm-hmm.
mind, and with a tank, DPS, healer. Everybody has their own strengths and they offset each other's weaknesses. Whereas even now, as recently as Elden Ring, which is From Software's most recent and most largest and some may say ambitious game, it's still the same way because you can you can actually respec in Elden Ring, which is very nice. And I respec into a magic class. Oh, I'd say about 3/4 of the way into my playthrough, and yeah, I had by the time I was collecting, I had collected a ton of spells, and I had some really good ones in there, and I was just melting everything in sight. But if something fell on top of me and hit me a couple times, I was dead. That was it, you know. It's in because I was wearing armor that either increased my intelligence or my MP, uh,
Hmm.
or didn't, or just weighed enough that it was under the certain the threshold where you can have a medium roll instead of the heavy fat rolls.
Yeah, none of these games allow for real cross-classing, which is one of my favorite things in any RPG. It's like, okay, I'm a mage, but I can wear heavy armor, so I'm not going to die in one hit. Or, I'm a warrior, but I have enough, magic defense that I'm not going to immediately get owned by the nearest mage. That's not really a thing you can do in these Souls games.
At least not. Yeah, no, I would say definitely not in Dark Souls, and it's really only possible in Elden Ring, really, really late game, or even New Game Plus,
Hmm.
which is what I did. I started a new game and I played a little bit and I beat a few bosses, but I respect into a faith build. But I made sure, yeah, to get my strength and endurance up a certain up a certain amount, so I could use certain weapons and armor, and like you said, where I'm not quite as squishy, but my faith is still fairly high. But that's because I'm over leveled for what I even for where I am in New Game Plus. So yeah, but like cross classing in the middle of the game, yeah, you're not going to be a master of anything, and
Hmm.
it's just you're going to hinder yourself.
It's kind of strange that the game would even separate at this point after all. I think we counted seven, including Sekiro, right? At this point, they're still using the same design philosophy in player builds. It's like, okay, you can be strong man, you can be quick man, or you can be magic man. That's it.
Yeah, and it when I say cross classes aren't viable, I mean if you're a veteran of these games, then yeah, it certainly is, and if you know what's coming and you know what spells are the best and what enemies are weak to what type of damage or what have you, then yeah, you can manage it. But yeah, it's not
Hmm.
not very friendly for newbies to cross class. It's yeah, you basically yeah, you're either tank, rogue, or mage, and even the last two for a newbie are is not easy. Um, like I said, Dark Souls 3, I started magic class and I played the first two games and I was having a tough time. So it definitely seems to encourage you to be a strength build for most of these
Yeah.
games.
At the very least, encourage you to be single-minded in purpose. It's like you're on the strengths build, and you better stay on that build because it doesn't help to build evenly in any of them.
No, you'll definitely shoot you. That's a good way to shoot yourself in the foot in these games. I learned very quickly.
Hmm. And to get away from specific mechanics, so you've beaten Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, which is a kind of spin off considering it started as a different kind of game, Elden Ring, and then the Demon Souls remake. That's seven. And you beat them all, right?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Well, good for you. What
Now I'm the Dark
did you
Souls
100%
master.
all of them?
As far as trophies, no, no. I think I only 100%ed Bloodborne and Sekiro, and I got a lot of the trophies in Elden Ring, but the other ones I'm missing are the endings, and it's a 100-hour game.
I
So,
thought you had demons too.
oh yeah, you're right. I have demons as well. That one took a few playthroughs, but it's the shortest of these games. So, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. It's definitely the best looking of all these games,
Hmm.
which is understandable because it's smaller in scope than most of them, anyways. So,
Also, it's dedicated hardware. And, like even Elden Ring was last gen.
yeah, no, you're exactly right. They somehow squeezed it on the PS4 and Xbox One.
So rank them. What's the worst? What's the best?
Okay,
We don't need
going
to go
from
through all seven. Just like worst and best.
worst is definitely Dark Souls 2. Uh,
Agreed.
yeah, I think it had the absolute most uninspiring boss design, at least in the base game. The DLC was probably the best part of the game, and if that's the best part of your game, then that's not a good sign.
Hmm.
Um, and then after that, probably I would say Dark Souls 3, and which I really enjoyed, and I think Dark Souls 3 probably had some of the most memorable bosses of any of these games. Um, and it had some, pretty cool locations. Like we mentioned earlier, a lot of the settings, they're from software. They have their favorite, you know, they they definitely have like their favorite types of settings and whatnot. There's always somewhere like a blight town, or there's a swamp,
Hmm.
or there's a volcano place, or there's an ice place and whatnot. And honestly, they just kind of run together at some
That's
point.
typical video game design. Back to
Yeah,
fucking Mario.
yeah, no, it's not unique to them, but yeah, the most memorable things about these games are definitely the bosses, and three had some really good ones. Um, and then after that, probably Dark Souls 1. It was really good. Um, I could, even for a remaster, it was pretty dated. It was
Yeah.
you moved very very slow in the game, but luckily
Oh,
I
it's
grew up.
for sure the slowest of all the games.
Yeah, yeah. It's if you play like Bloodborne, Elden Ring, and then try going back and playing the first Dark Souls. Yeah, it's night and day, and it's really really slog to get through. But I ended up enjoying it. I was able to acclimatize because hey, I grew up on old games, so didn't take
Yeah.
me too long to get used to it. But and then after that, probably I would say Bloodborne, which is the most recent one I played, and one I was least interested in initially because I didn't really care for the aesthetics when it first
Yeah,
came
like
out.
when you told me you were playing through these games, and you're like, "All right, I beat three." And I was like, "Oh, you can do Bloodborne now?" You're like, I don't know. I might do something else. You really delayed Bloodborne for yourself.
Yeah, that old English Victorian style has never really appealed to me in
Hmm.
anything. That's why I never even beat Syndicate, and Syndicate's a really really good Assassin's Creed game, but and it's got some of my favorite characters, but yeah,
I
it's
just
just
hate the British. Well, what are you gonna do?
I know I'm three-fourths British, but I hate them. I'm a self-hating Brit descendant.
I'm a self-hating Mexican, so it's fine.
Mm. But yeah, and I'm still not crazy about it. And the game has never received a patch or a remaster, so it was 30 FPS. But
Yeah.
again, I mean, just got used to that. I'm not one of those that I need every single game to be in 60 FPS or higher. I can go back to a 30 FPS game. It's nice when there's uh, higher frame rates or whatnot,
I,
but
I, I think the preferable thing is stability, because
yeah,
one of the things they did for the Dark Souls remaster is stability. It's like it would vary a lot, especially old, PS3 Blighttown is a different kind of game than PS4 Blighttown.
yeah, yeah. And there'd probably be a lot of people out there that said I didn't experience the true Dark
No, you
Souls, but
you the real Dark Souls is PS3 Blighttown. Yes.
that's where it real starts for reals this time. But yeah, I really in Bloodborne I really again it had some interesting bosses. Not my favorites because there's a lot of Lovecraftian influence
Hmm.
in a lot of the bosses and stories. Spoilers, I did not expect there to be aliens in Bloodborne. I thought it was just gonna be
Yeah,
like,
the big head guys show up, and you're like, oh, we're just gonna do anything now. Okay.
yeah, then you're fighting some weird alien squid monster, and then
Hmm. Big
some
fucking
giant.
Cthulhu's all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, it got really weird. I thought it'd just be vampires and werewolves and whatnot, but no, yeah, enemies in space. Um, but I really like the trick weapons in that game. How
Hmm.
there were, not nearly as many weapons as there were in Dark Souls games, but every weapon had a secondary use to it, and it you had had a lot of variety in play styles, and I really enjoyed that, and had fun with that. So um, after that, probably the Demon Souls remake. Like I said, it's beautiful. It's a really good
Hmm.
looking game. It's probably the most punishing is in terms of length between checkpoints. It's
Yeah, because
basically
it was their first from what 2009 or 2010, somewhere in there.
yes, and it is a 1-to-1 remake. There is no, as far as I
Hmm.
can tell, there is no variation whatsoever. There's enemies are in the same place, items are in the same place, same weapons, spells, everything
We've had
like that.
we've had this discussion on this show before and off. It's like, the difference between Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 2 remake, the difference between Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 7 remake. Demon Souls is the most accurate remake ever.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. Um, and it's very short. It's a pretty short game
Hmm.
compared to the rest of them. It's probably like 10 or 15 hours or whatnot. But it's got a pretty good difficulty curve. But it's still got one of the just still got one of the dumbest game mechanics I've ever experienced in the world tendency.
Tendency system, yeah.
And like if you die in your human form, then the tendency goes darker, and then enemies start getting stronger, and it's basically punishing you for sucking at the game, and not knowing these systems, even though they never told
Which
you
is
what they
very
were.
strange because they abandoned that immediately after that game and never did it again because they
Yeah,
realized how stupid it is.
yeah,
Because there's already a built-in mechanic for punishing you for sucking. Everyone comes back to life who you killed.
hmm yeah, and you lose all your souls. You
Yeah,
can't,
you
you
don't
have
need
to.
extra punishment.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right.
Although now that I'm thinking about it, they did do that again in Dark Souls 2, which is why it's the worst one because it's like, oh, you died, you lose some of your health. Oh, you died again, you lose more.
Yeah, that was the absolute worst. I have no idea what they were thinking of that, and the fact that you have to equip a certain like demon souls, like Dark Souls 2, you have like if you want to offset that, you have to basically waste one of your ring slots to
Hmm.
restore some of your HP that you lost, or just keep turning human and hope you don't die. But once I got used to that, I really ended up enjoying it, and I really especially the magic classes were like you said, they're overpowered in these games, but they are it's magic is extremely broken in Demon Souls, and I'm glad they didn't fix it in the remake, because you can blast through everything, even on New Game Plus. I was having an easier time on New Game Plus than I was during the first playthrough, because I was just able to just go up to a boss and get behind it, firestorm, dead. Okay, next.
Do 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 do.
And then
We got Sekiro and Elden
yeah,
Ring.
yeah, probably my second favorite of these From Software games would have to be Elden Ring. And honestly, it might just be because just the sheer scale of the game, because it's got the maybe not the most beautiful, but but at least the most sweeping landscapes of any of these games. Um, and there is something
Excuse me.
there's
Pseudo open world.
yeah, it's a very open world, and it's very there's a novelty to a game like Dark Souls being an open world. And this may not this may sound like a minor thing, but for an open world, I think it's very important. It probably has one of the best horse animations and mechanics that I've played.
Hmm.
And the only game I can think that did it better would probably be Red Dead 2. Um, which is saying something because you're a cowboy in that game. Your horses are your life. But the horse you get in Elden Ring Torrent is so easy to maneuver, and he can traverse almost anywhere you want him. He's got a double jump, which is nice, and he's fast as hell, and it's really really easy to get out into the open world, and enemies in the open world are not nearly as tough as ones you uh, fight in what they call dungeons, and because there's two types of dungeons. There's legacy dungeons, which are special areas, big special, huge special areas that are kind of supposed to resemble Dark Souls levels in the old games. And then there's regular dungeons, which are basically cookie cutter type mini dungeons that get old really
So,
really fast.
so they copy paste Chalice Dungeon from Bloodborne.
Yeah, essentially. Um, yeah. So yeah, listeners who may not know, but Chalice dungeons were basically these dungeons you enter code in, and or you create a ritual, and then you go in, and there'd be a certain formula. You go in, there's a lever you have to find that's usually protected by a tough enemy. You pull the lever, opens the door, you go through the door, you eventually fight a boss, and they get old really really fast.
What
And
happened in the development of Bloodborne is they experienced boss bloat. They had more bosses than they actually had levels, and they didn't know where to put them or what to do with them. And they didn't fit in the lore, quote unquote. So they just dumped them all to this extra optional area. And some incredibly unique, you'll never see ever again kinds of bosses are stuck way the hell down in those Chalice dungeons. And there's no real reason for them to be there other than to be there. They're just there. And in order to get them, you got to slog through the same room kind of over and over and over.
yeah, and you need to go through the dungeons to get the best, get certain types of gear and the best gems and whatnot. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's soul sucking, literally. After a while,
It's a
man,
bad idea that they just kept going with. Yeah.
yeah, it was just it was a terrible experience and otherwise really really good game. And Elden Ring does copy that, not nearly as badly because they're totally optional. Well, Chalice dungeons work too. Um, but at least in the little mini dungeons of Elden Ring, there's usually something pretty good at the end. There's a weapon or a piece of armor or a spell or an ash of
A
war or what
reward
have
for
you.
this pain, yeah. As opposed
Yeah,
to Chalice Dungeon, which is a key to the next Chalice Dungeon.
yeah. But in these mini dungeons, they had their own bosses, but I think there was only like 5 or 6 unique bosses, and then they were
Mm.
just all duplicated after that. It
So,
just
so
spread
this has the
across.
opposite problem. They have too many rooms and not enough bosses to put in there.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. I think they probably could have cut the mini dungeons, excuse me, down in half, and
Mm.
maybe even more than that. I think that'd been just fine, because the legacy dungeons, the bigger ones, are really really good. They're really unique. They have unique enemies. They have usually some really really good gear scattered around, and interesting NPCs you can meet and all that good stuff. And um, there's usually one of the main bosses at the end of it that you can face. And uh, even though, like I said, there's a lot of dupe bosses in Elden Ring. The 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 big bad main bosses that you have to fight, the story bosses, are all, at least from a design standpoint, excellently done.
Mm.
And some of them are extremely unique. There's one, Radan, who's this this big old hulking gladiator guy, and it's hilarious because he rides on this tiny he's like 20 feet tall, and he rides on this like normal tiny sized horse, and the poor horse is just like straining under his weight, but it still doesn't give in. He's just riding around in the arena, and the arena is this just huge vast desert expanse, and you can summon like Dark Souls games, there's summon signs where you can summon NPCs, and in this arena
Mm-hmm.
there's about a dozen of them. You can summon like 8 or 9 different NPCs to come and help you fight, and it's essentially a raid. It's an MMO raid in a Dark Souls game, and it was a really really cool experience, unlike anything else in any other Souls games, and it was a ton of fun. And he was a tough boss. He was really really um, yeah, it was really satisfying taking him down, and especially getting his weapons because he has a really really awesome weapon and armor set. But yeah, the main bosses are all top notch. I mean, some of the best they've From Software has ever done, and um, yeah, as far as like the open world goes, I don't know if it did anything truly unique except for what I said earlier, just the novelty of Dark Souls game type
A From
gameplay.
Software game, open world, yeah.
Yeah. But as far as like what you discover and what you interact with, it's the same as most other open worlds. But again, it was a pretty cool experience. But
What
my absolute
everyone is good. No, good.
I was just going to transition to number one.
I'll say everyone is kissing Elden Ring's ass this year, certainly. But despite all that, you still like Sekiro the best.
Yeah, and Sekiro is the first From Software game that I completed, and as soon as I beat it, I played it again and beat it again, and that's just how much I like. That's how much I liked it because it's not a short game. It's 20, 25 hours, something like that. But originally it was supposed to be a Tenchu game because From
Yeah,
Software has the rights to Tenchu.
the stealth assassin game where you poison rice balls.
Yes, and you have a blast doing it. And as much as I would have loved a new Tenchu, I think Sekiro was a good alternative because it has the most unique battle system from any of the other
Mm.
From Software games. Um, Still has the same, a lot of this similar formulas and systems of other From Software games. Like the quest design is still atrocious um, and just unnecessarily confusing. But it really it like we were saying earlier, it had these games have these flow to combat, and that's
Mm.
especially so in Sekiro, uh, where instead of dodging attacks and waiting for your opportunity to strike, the game encourages you to attack, 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 and then parry an opponent's attack. And it's just you have these meters called the poise meters, um, or is it posture? I can't remember. They keep changing the names.
Yeah, they use
Um,
a similar mechanic through mini games, but change the name.
and you're basically trying to get your opponent's poise meter up to the max so you can stagger them while also keeping an eye on yours so you don't get staggered. And yeah, it creates this just really unique rhythm that's different for every boss in the game. And
Mm.
there's still some of my favorite boss encounters, not just in From Software games, but of all time. Uh, there
Mm.
were there were times where there was a couple bosses in Sekiro where my hands were sweating, I could barely hold the controller, my heart's beating like 150 beats per minute, and when I finally did beat the boss, I just had this feeling of exhilaration that I never, and it's like that's what I imagine people described when they were talking about the first Dark Souls. And honestly, I never really felt that way with any of the Dark Souls games. I mean, yeah, there were bosses that were tough and that were really cool to fight, and I was pleased when I beat them. But I was like Sekiro. I mean, I was literally
That was your
after,
I get it moment.
yeah, there was after one of them, after one of the bosses who's a optional boss, and he's arguably the toughest boss in the game. After I finally defeated him, I mean, I was jazzed up. I had to go for a run after that. I was just like so pumped up after that. It was an incredible feeling, and it never really felt that way about any of the other bosses in any of the From Software games. And maybe it's because it was my first From Software game, but
Yeah, you
uh,
never forget yours. I was gonna say that absolutely happened with me with Smo and Ornstein in Dark Souls 1. which is ostensibly the midway point of the game, and it took me a fucking month of going at it to really get it done. So I definitely felt that exhilaration. I think the music helped and the environment. It's the overcoming the trial that's supposed to be the appeal of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you overcome a trial so many times, it does begin to lose its appeal. It's like, okay, well, it's another one of these things. It's gonna be hard. It's like, yep, sure is.
Yeah, and I don't get me wrong, I had a similar feeling with Smo and Ornstein because I mean, at that point it was like in Sekiro, there is a boss where you start fighting him, and then there's kind of like a tougher enemy that comes in, like a sort of miniature version of said boss that comes in, and that was a big oh shit moment. But yeah, Smog and Ornstein were two like extremely different opponents, both in appearance and fighting style. And yeah, just to see them work in tandem with each other trying to take you down, it was like that was like the first like, well, I felt like it was in over my head in that game.
Mm.
And but yeah, if you do something enough times, then I don't know, you kind of lose, yeah, there's
Desensitized? What's the
yeah, a
right
little,
word
yeah,
here?
there's not too many surprises, when you're a veteran of these games. But
So I've played all but the last two you mentioned. I played all of them except for Elden Ring and Sekiro. I own Sekiro and I'll install it one of these days. I promise. But I'm not currently interested in Elden Ring. Perhaps next year. I've only finished two of them. I've gotten pretty far in another one and not so far in two others. But it's just like, man, we talked about this before in an older episode. It's like, what am I proving here? It's like, okay, it took me a long time to beat Dark Souls 1, but then I did it, and it was awesome. And then I did it again. I was like, it was slightly less awesome. And then I beat Dark Souls 2, and I was like, this isn't as good. And then I beat Dark Souls 2 again, and I said, no, this still isn't as good. So by the time I got to Bloodborne and Giant Spider Church, and then the Dark Souls 3, and it's like, I'm not having fun anymore. It's like the fun factor is just gone. I don't know that it's entirely possible that it can be reclaimed in Sekiro or Elden Ring. I'm not disputing that, but I'm doubting it. It's like I don't know that I'm ever going to feel like I did again with the Smog and Ornstein part, which I think is, I don't know if it's a design philosophy problem with From Software because they've been successful with it, so there's no reason to change up the formula. But I don't know how many Souls-like games you've played. I've played like 5 other kinds of Souls-like games. There's Neo and Hellpoint and Lords of the Fallen and The Surge and some other damn thing on Xbox where I've forgotten how unimpressive it is. But they all use the same style of formula, and I guess I'm having just as much fun, quote unquote, as I would be playing, the Dark Souls 3 or whatever, because it's the same idea. So I'm wondering if the feeling is just the overcoming the challenge the first couple of times. Because you may have really liked Elden Ring and, Demon Souls, but was it as high as it was when you beat Sekiro? You know what I'm saying?
no, because Elden Ring is basically it's like Dark Souls 3 in an open world. And it does, yeah, it's got some different stuff in it. You can jump. Like I said, you got a horse that you can ride around in, but if you play Dark Souls 3, then Elden Ring will feel very, very familiar to you. And I and but Sekiro just felt so different that it
Mm-hmm.
from the other games that it you know is easy to set it apart. I really, really enjoyed the battle system. I love the franticness and the really, really fast pace of the fights in that game. So, um, and as far as boss encounters go and becoming desensitized to them, in the case of Ornstein and Small, I don't think From Software is ever going to duplicate that feeling again with that specific
Mm-hmm.
fight because not only was that a challenge and a huge hurdle for a lot of players because it was a duo boss, but it was also a very well designed duo boss as well.
Yeah, in later games, like I know in 2, the second to last boss technically is another 1-on-2 fight, but the two you fight are they basically exactly the same kind of archetype.
Hmm.
So, and I think at some point in Dark Souls 2, you also have to fight two like dragon riders at the same time, but they're the same character. You just the same NPC, really, the same boss
Yeah.
twice. Whereas O and S were different by design on purpose, and then it
Hmm.
seems in future games when you've had to face double bosses, they've been the same thing.
Yeah, exactly right. They're very different, but they complement each other very, very well. And when one went down, then the other one ate their soul and then powered up, and then it was, incorporated some of their counterparts' moves into their own move set, and yeah, it even the second phase was felt fresh in that case. But
And then at some point, I believe after Bloodborne, you'd have to tell me for the newer games, but I know I saw this in Dark Souls 3 a ton of Bloodborne influences, where you'll be fighting an enemy in Bloodborne, and then just because they'll transform into a completely different kind of entity. It's like, oh, I'm a third of the way down my health now to use my extra attack I normally wouldn't use, and this was very true in the DLC for sure.
yeah,
And so when that started seeping into Dark Souls 3 when I played it, it's like goddamn nearly every scrub enemy is like, oh, a squid popped out of his head halfway through. It's like, come on, man, we can do this with everybody now? And it turns out, yes.
yeah, Dark Souls 3 does it even in the first boss.
Yes, it
Ayudex, what?
does. Yeah.
Yeah, Ayudex, what's his
Index
name?
Gundyr.
Yeah, Gundyr, and he just yeah, all of a sudden just these giant tentacles sprout out of his head. It's of this giant guy in armor. It just felt totally out of place, and yeah, you can definitely see the influences of Bloodborne on 3 especially. Um, Elden Ring does have that. Um, I don't think there's not in the main bosses there aren't uh, there, not too many anything egregious. One of the main ones you fight, like halfway when you get his health bar halfway through, he like sticks a he like sticks his arm into a severed dragon's head, and then he uses that to spray fire. It's actually pretty cool. Um, but it's just yeah, not like coming out of his body just randomly or what some entity that is not related or anything like that. But
Ha, you've made me use 2% of my power.
yeah, but yeah, quite a few of them do have secondary phases, but they all felt they all fit with that boss. It felt
Hmm.
as far as their design or their lore or whatever. So
That's
nothing too egregious.
to close this out. Now, can you tell me what was your favorite story of all of these games?
I don't even know what the story is in any of these games.
Surely Sekiro has a story.
It does. It does. But again, it's got multiple endings like most of them. I think it's got
Oh
four
yeah,
endings. Um,
because I'm on the side of, again, I haven't played two of them, but I'm on the sides of none of these stories matter. I don't give a fuck about any of the NPCs,
yeah, no,
and that goes for any of the games.
I'm pretty much the same way. I mean, it's just like the first game, you're lighting these fires and or extinguishing them and putting the age in darkness, and it's just like doesn't matter whatsoever. Has no bearing on the next games. And second game, I don't even remember the second. Like your families get killed by a curse, and then you get inflicted by it. You're trying to lift it. And
That's what it is.
I think I can't. I know he has
I was just
yeah.
look because you come across some fucking NPC. I'm gonna steal this from the internet, but it's like, ah, shit ass dead dude. You came from dead ass swamp. You must go fight the big sad king in the high tower of. Watch out for evil dog. It's like NPCs are fucking worthless in all these games.
Yeah, they don't help you at all. It's as far as progressing in your quest go, but yeah, two, I have no idea. I know there was a king that was like in a tower that you killed, and then
Probably.
there was a throne watcher, and then a throne defender or something. You
There's a
had to,
big tree guy. Yeah.
yeah, there was some big blob that was a scholar that you had to kill, and I don't know. And then yeah, three was much the same as the first one, just whether lighting the fires or plunging the age in darkness and blah 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 all that.
Bloodborne is like, dreamer, hunter, dream, hunt, dream, hunter, hunter.
Yeah, you either wake up, take over the dream, or become a tentacle, and then this anime girl picks you up. And I think we've all seen enough hentai. I know where that leads. Um, and then yeah, Demon Souls almost had a coherent story. You know, there was a kingdom
It
and then
has
a
a very similar story in the lore, quote unquote,
yeah.
to Bloodborne, in fact, because it's just like old gods reawakened.
Yeah, there's a kingdom and then a fog rolls in and then demons start coming out of the fog and killing everybody. Then like a giant tree demon comes along and the king makes a deal with a giant tree demon. And he's able to get stronger using demon souls, but then he becomes corrupted and then another demon starts impersonating the king and then king's like a
Can you
blob, you have
name
to kill him.
Can you name any non-boss NPC? Any game?
Uh, well, there's Andre
Andre the
the
Blacksmith. All
blacksmith.
right, I took
Yeah,
that one. You can't use it.
damn it. There's the Maid in Black and
I guess
Demon
that counts.
Souls. Um, there's also Ben the blacksmith in Demon Souls, or is it Ed? No, it's Ed. It's Ed. Yeah, I think like
That's that reaches my overarching point of like none of these people are memorable and you don't care. The point of the game is the game, you know? Story
just
doesn't matter, your friendly NPCs don't matter.
well, there was in Sekiro. There's Emma. Um, she's the Sekiro waifu, and she's probably my favorite waifu
Alright.
of all the Sekiros, because you give her your seed, and then she increases your flask number, your
Wonderful.
charges.
Can you name a single Bloodborne NPC?
Um, there's the doll girl. I don't the one
You remember the
you
level up
level.
women, but you don't
Yeah,
remember any characters.
well, that's I mean, them and the blacksmiths are the ones you interact with the most. So obviously, those only ones you're gonna remember. But most of them don't have names, and even if they do, you have to look on the internet, and it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
would have known that. Yeah,
This is
sometimes I
one of
think
those
those.
games where if you want to see the real story, you gotta look up fucking Destiny Wiki or whatever.
Or watch a Vadi Via movie or whatever his name is.
Look, uh, it's boring.
I think he makes up stuff a lot of the
He has
times.
to. Everybody
It's
just
like
accepts it.
it's
And
like I.
you go to what's the guy's name? Miyazaki, right? Go to
Mhm,
Miyazaki. He's like, hey, is the real story behind Bloodborne this? And he would probably be like, yeah, sure, why
mhm.
not?
Yeah, whatever you say.
Buy my next game. Don't care.
We're owned by Tencent now, so we got that
Yeah,
going for
great.
us. But
Which means the next Souls game will have microtransactions.
yay, pay to wins.
What do you think the future for this series could be, considering where they've gone with Elden Ring? What can they do next? Really?
Well, as we know, publishers and developers love to follow the money,
Yeah.
and Elden Ring made a shit ton of money.
Yep.
So if I had to guess, I would say it would be another open world game. And yeah, it just I hope they I wouldn't mind another open world game from software
You're not
game, but
fatigued with the series?
well, I was going to get to that. For me personally, I think they need to start experimenting. They need to switch things up. How much I don't know, because you know you can make the argument that if they change too much, then you lose the identity of the
Yeah.
series. Um, especially if it's an Elden Ring sequel. Now, if it's an entirely new IP and set in a different world and whatnot, then they may have a little more uh, leeway to change things up. But yeah, I think it'll be another open world game. But I also think uh, I would love to see them experiment with new mechanics. We talked a little online, but excuse me, offline, and like one of my biggest gripes with Elden Ring, and it's something I thought they would have implemented, but they didn't, was just the pace of your character if you're a certain build. Like a strength build, you're way down in armor. You expect not to be able to move very fast.
Hmm.
You can, you know, where you can build up your endurance enough and put on certain pieces of equipment where you can still have your medium rolls as it were. You're not just got heavy rolling everywhere. But it'd be nice if you were say a dexterity build, and you were playing more like a rogue character with knives and leather armor and all that, it'd be nice if you could maybe move a little faster or have a flip or something. Uh, something, just make it feel like I'm playing a speedy
something
character.
to spice it up.
Yeah, or if you're a magic class, have a blink. Have something where I can teleport back or sideways or something. Some, some escape mechanic, to help me defensively instead of just like, okay, I need to nuke down this enemy in front of me because if he hits me or sneezes on me, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Just have something, yeah, have some defense mechanism where I can maneuver around and escape and whatnot. And if you want that to cost mana or stamina or both, then fine, whatever. But just yeah, make them a little more unique. A guy in full plate armor should not move as fast as a rogue in leather armor, in my opinion. And that's really something I would really want them to put in the next game. Is just have these classes actually feel different, vastly different, in my opinion. And
Have a real
yeah.
reason to pick between the three archetypes, quote unquote.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I would hope that they add more pause features and accessibility issues to make me, a professional game journalist, able to beat these games. Because they're just too darn hard, and I refuse to get good. I don't have time to get good.
Too old to get good.
I'm not too old to get good. I just don't care. I don't want to put in the time it needs to get good. I did for Dark Souls 1. I told you I put a solid month into that game. And then after that, I was like, that's all the investment I'm given. But I want to thank you, the listener, for investing your time in this show. You can find me on the internet, on Twitter, at Loki Jarson. Stizzy, you can find in the I don't want to say dark web because that makes you sound evil. In the brown web.
Yeah, more like the I don't know, the tan, the something like an earthy color. Yeah, not quite.
He's an earthbender. Earthbending web.
I'm not hanging on Silk Road or anything, but yeah, I'm around.
You're just in, the regular shitty parts of Reddit instead of the really shitty parts of Reddit.
Of course.
You have any final thoughts? We'll close up here.
No. Just kind of reiterate it when I started with. I can't believe so much time has passed between these, and I'm going to make the same empty promise I do every time, and try to do more of these shows because it doesn't even feel like our show. It feels like your show. It feels like I'm a guest at this point, which I essentially am.
Well, my brother has come on the last dozen episodes, and we, the last episode we spent most of it talking about fucking Marvel movies. So I've expanded the scope, shall we say, of this podcast.
Hey, I'd be up for that too. And yeah, I'm not trying to portion blame to you at all. I mean, it's totally my fault. I could make time if I wanted to.
As the host, I'm gonna blame you too. Thank you for listening. Goodbye and good night.
Good night, everyone.